Hello and welcome back for part 2 of the complete walkthrough of Antichamber. I've made a couple of updates to the map since part 1 because I found some things in going through this section that weren't quite right or that I needed to update. So, if there's any differences, that's why. Now there's a couple of very long puzzle sequences in this section, so let's jump right in and get started at number 52. So we're going to start off back at a loop that won't close, and here it probably could have just been a W rather than a number for 52, but I'm not going to go back and renumber all the things on the map because I've already done that several times and it takes forever. So we're sticking with the numbers 1 through 100, and 52 is just walking down and seeing that the room changes behind us and takes us back if we walk that way. For number 53, this is a red puzzle, so we're going to get to use the red gun to easily replicate these blocks and fill the space. That lets us go to the back side and pick up a block to get through. We're going into one of the longest puzzle sequences here. So we go to this short platform. If we jump down, then we go back to the same room again. We see that the platform gets a little longer each time. If we do this over and over, the platform gets long enough that we can go straight across. The other option is we can go down to the bottom here, grab a single block, and use it to elevate ourselves back up to the top and get onto the far platform without doing this repeatedly. But it's an interesting thing the game does where this platform changes each time we reload, so I wanted to run through the longer way and show that. And we're stuck. Alright, one more try and I think we'll be over there. Alright, so we're going into a very long sequence here. First we're going to get to use the windows to move through, so we're in the blue room and we're going to move to the yellow room. We can also see in the black room there's a hole through the glass there. There's an invisible wall that gets us from the yellow room into the black room. We can't see the hole, but we know it's there because we saw it from the other side. If we fall into that hole, we get to the red room, and we have to back away from the circle on the wall, which gets us to the blue room. From there, we can go to the green room, and as long as we don't go through this box, which gets us back to the same green room, we can proceed up to this room that has invisible floors. If we go all the way to the top, the invisible floor tricks us and doesn't get us to the exit, so there's a second invisible floor down here that we can walk across. That one goes kind of in a roundabout fashion to the edge of the room and takes us slowly upwards towards the exit. And as long as we don't jump, the floor won't disappear and we can go across. Now this is one of the most frustrating things in the game to me. There is the balls that move faster when we move on the two sides. There's a green box and a blue box. We need the green box to be full and the blue box to be destroyed. So the best way is to jump, destroy the green box, then give it a second to regenerate and move to get the blue box to be destroyed right as the green box regenerates. If you're looking at the two, you can back through the door and that makes it easier. So here we're just have an eyeball on the wall, we look at it, it destroys that floor and then regenerates so we can hop across and run through before the wall comes back. Here we get to a springboard plate, so we can jump down on it and go up to the room above, which we technically just fell down from, but when we go back up it'll be a different room, and lead us to what I think is absolutely the most frustrating thing in the game. There's this door, and I'm cutting through some of the time I spent here because it took so long. I've done this several times at different points, and really the only way I've found to get through is to brute force it. So you keep trying until you can run from the laser through the door. I found something interesting here where there's actually two overlapping green lasers and I don't know why. If we somehow stand in the middle we can block half of it and you see that halfway activates the door. Now I have half of the laser as green and half of it is yellow. I'm sure this has something to do with the more elegant solution to the puzzle, so if anyone knows what that is, please feel free to add it in the comments, because I don't get how this puzzle works. I do know that if you try hard enough, you can block the laser and run through the door. So we're just going to give it a few more tries, and we'll make it in to what is perhaps the most disappointing reward the game could offer, a plain white room with nothing in it. So we get to the end of this long, complicated puzzle sequence, and we get no reward other than a white room. So it's truly just for the sake of it. So if we fall down this part, we get to a red puzzle, but I feel like it should be yellow because there's really nothing you're doing with the red gun here. We're just trying to break apart this this group of blocks and then move them to the edges before the middle one regenerates and reconnects them. So we need to get at an angle here to see in and grab the blocks since they're behind glass. And we block the 4 lasers, and that lets us move forward. That gets us back to an intersection we've been to, so we'll head on to number 57. This is back at the very start at a leap of faith. We can look at the eyeball on the wall and stare at it for a minute, and it'll blink shut. And this is going to get us to one of the paths to the green gun. So at this point we're only supposed to have the blue gun, so we have 2 blocks here, and our goal is to block the intersection of the 2 lasers. We can do that by building the blocks out one by one and getting one into the middle. Then we need to use the other to block the door open, and we can take the first one and the second one and use them to open this door. And this was a shortcut to the green gun. This is not normally the first way you'd get there, but it does work for us. So here, something I could have called a puzzle, but I called a walk, so again, kind of arbitrary what I gave numbers and didn't. If we walk to the right here, there's an invisible wall we can walk through, and we get to this puzzle that's clearly meant to be green. The walls are green, the blocks are green, and we want to build a bridge to get to the other side. So with the green gun we can build a bridge by drawing straight across, and I've found it's easiest if we just hold the beam in front of us and slowly walk forward, and the gun will draw ahead of us if we aim it to the right spot. So instead of trying to draw across, the beam doesn't always go the right direction. Then we get to a yellow puzzle, which is frustrating because we just passed a green one, and you expect to be able to go further, but we need the yellow gun to drag the blocks through that field, and it gets us to part of climbing the tower. If we had fallen down here instead of going across, it gets us to this intersection, and we get to encounter a complex puzzle. There's a couple ways to get through here, but I think the intended way is to set off this sequence of the blocks chasing their tail, and you're able to hop through when the top and bottom make a gap at the same time. You can also make a solid wall out of the blocks and draw a seam down the middle and hop through that way, but I think that the cooler way is to do it with the loops. Here we get to a fuse puzzle, so we need to let that block move when we delete a distant part of it. And we're going to make a big mass of blocks here to make sure that the left side is the smaller side when we try to delete part of it. And we see that there's a lift plate, and when we let this box come forward, it's going to raise us up. So if we connect this one and then delete on the shorter side, it's going to have a fuse effect and go over and let that box move forward and move us up on a time delay. This gets us to one of the developer rooms. This one shows the evolution of the different phases of the gun. So it has some notes and the different colors to show how the design of the gun evolved, which is pretty cool. If we go back, then we're able to find another green puzzle here. In this one, our goal is, as with several others, just to draw a box around the outside, and that will fill in all the space to cover all the lasers that are behind the glass. So we would be doing this with the green gun, and we're just drawing a path around the outside. And we need a few more blocks. And that gets us through. Now we're going to go back to Leap of Faith and walk the other direction. If we took a right here, we can keep walking and we end up at Stairway to Heaven, which we've been to several times, but we don't want to do that. We want to go down through this invisible floor to get to an area with the two different colored fields. For the first one, it's a yellow puzzle, so we can do this even with the blue gun. If we jump down, gather a whole bunch of blocks, we can actually just make a tower to get us back up to the top and go across. But since it's intended to be a yellow puzzle, we're going to do it the way they wanted us to, which is to use a yellow block as an elevator and get us to the other side. So we can take a single block and raise ourselves up to the top and hop off. This gets us to room 7 of climbing the tower, and again we'll look at that later. So we go to the other side, which has a red puzzle. We need to get some blocks from the yellow side because we can't grab blocks from inside that other field. And since it's a red puzzle, we'll do a floor on this one. We can draw below us and make a floor to get across. And then we just walk right over. Here, there's a couple of ways to go. If we draw a line up the middle, we can actually block our fall when we go on this jump plate. But first, we'll go across and see what happens if we just went straight across. And that gets us back to a room we've already been to. So let's go back and do it the other way. So we'll do the same thing. We can't start on the other side because we need some blocks over there. So we have to come back to this point and remake that floor and get across and have some blocks. Because if we get to the other side and we don't have any blocks, we won't be able to get in the way and fall down when we go on that jump plate. We'll just keep bouncing across back and forth. We have to be able to make a barrier in the middle so that when we run into it, it'll make us fall down and we can engage the puzzle that's down below. So we'll just draw a little thing in the way here, and that wasn't quite tall enough, so we will draw it a little bit taller. Now we can fall down and find another red puzzle which seems to me like a yellow one. Maybe there's another solution, but the only way I can figure through this one is that if you delete a block and then slide other blocks onto that spot before the one regenerates, you actually end up with fewer blocks. It permanently destroys a regenerating block. I think that's the solution, but if it's not, please feel free to comment as to what the real solution is. But that one is certainly effective. So this gets us to another developer room. This one is a timeline of the development of the game, which is pretty cool. It's a lot of neat pictures in there from the 7 years that the game was under development. So now we're going to go to Stairway to Heaven. We've seen a lot of different ways of getting here, and any of them that bring us here take us back to this point. So once we enter that room, when we turn around, we always find this yellow puzzle waiting behind us. So it's not, you can't go back and forth through that corridor. It's different depending which way you go. So to solve this yellow puzzle, we're going to drag some blocks over there, and this gets us to a room called Breaking the Arc, which we're not quite ready for. We'll come back to this one a little later. Next, we're just going to walk up this invisible staircase to get to connecting the pieces, which we'll come back to in a minute. First, we're going to collect a bunch of blocks here and go over to this area behind the hidden upper staircase. And this is, I guess, a yellow puzzle. We don't really need the red gun here. So we'll treat it that way. And we'll make a wall of blocks here that we can drag through with us. So this is a similar spot to what we had earlier, where the sides and the walls of this place will destroy our blocks, but the actual field in the middle won't. So we can drag the blocks through it. We just don't want to let them run into an edge or they'll start blowing up.
So we can just drag them around the corners and then pick up the chain before it gets to the edge and keep pulling it towards us. And that allows us to get here, which is going to be yet another developer room. This one has numbers in cubes that change as you go around them to different sides. So back to connecting the pieces. This is a particularly confusing puzzle for me. It's green, which definitely implies we should be using the green gun. And the name connecting the pieces to me implies that we should be trying to link it up, and what we learn from that is that the new pieces that get filled in regenerate like the others, but the ones that we added don't. So in this case, the red blocks won't regenerate, but the new green blocks will. So my initial thought was we just do like a normal green wall and break it down the middle, and it'll disappear and we can walk through before it regenerates. This one, however, regenerates much more quickly, more like a yellow wall than a green one. So I have gotten through here with the green gun just by running up to it and spamming as much as I can to try to remove blocks in front of me and push through, but that doesn't seem like the right solution. So my best answer to this is to use the yellow gun and drag the blocks out of the way. If someone has a reliable method of doing it with the green gun, please add it in the comments. But for me, the only way I've gotten through with the green is just to click all around and try to push my way through. It wasn't an elegant or meaningful solution. So here we get to a yellow puzzle, and the only trick to this one is you want to keep dragging the blocks around in the same direction, because the yellows, when you drag them, are always going to pull from the longest side. So once we go around this middle section to generate some extra blocks, if we pull from the end that we just made, it's not going to be as clean as if we go back and pull from the far end. That way it'll just pull them out of that middle part, and we can just keep going from there. So we filled in the whole thing, and all of the lasers were covered, so we got through to another part of climbing the tower. We'll go back to this room, and this time we're going to go to the red side, which to me is a yellow puzzle as well, because we can get there the exact same way. We can use this yellow block, treat it like an elevator, and get out to the other side. I don't see what the red gun can do for us here that doesn't. So if we walk straight through here, we're going to get to one of the paths, which is a secret wall that is going to take us back to somewhere we don't want to be. So it takes us back to the WTF field area, and this is one of those surfaces that appears when you walk and disappears when you jump. So if we jump and get rid of it, that's the trick to getting through to this developer room, which lets you play a game of Snake. Now the last path out of this room is on the green side. So for this one, we don't want to use the yellow gun, so we're not going to elevate ourselves up on that block like we have for the other side. This one we're going to push these boxes and use them to jump across. And we actually can't jump from the shorter box onto the taller one, so we just need to use the short one, and we'll be able to make it over there. So there we go, and this green puzzle can again teach us that if we fill in a shape, the new blocks are going to regenerate as well. So all of these new blocks regenerate just like the outer ring does. And all we have to do here is collect some blocks and fill into 2 rings around these lasers to fill in, just like we've done several other times before. And that's going to cover all the lasers that go across the middle through the field that we can't carry blocks through. Need a couple more. And that gets us through there. So our next way out of Stairway to Heaven is just to walk straight through. So here we're going to hit the laser that opens the left door and then the laser that opens the right door, and we'll just keep walking. This is kind of a puzzle, but again I just put a W here so it won't have a number. And that's going to take us back to where we're looking at that pendulum room. If we go back to that same spot, and instead we walk through the lasers, that way we open the left door, and we don't expose the other red lasers to close it again, and we just walk out this way, we're going to get to the same spot. So we have several different ways that are leading to this spot which says the end, and we know that's where the game's going to take us eventually. So the last way out of this room is to take some blocks. We're going to address both a blue and a green puzzle down here. So we could collect these blocks more slowly, but we'll just grab them all. And this room, unlike most of the rooms with the fields in them, is a high enough ceiling that we can actually put blocks over it. So we can take blocks through here without the yellow gun. Usually we need a yellow gun to get through a spot like this and have any blocks on the other side. So for the blue puzzle we just need 8 blocks, but for the green one we need quite a few more, so we'll just grab a bunch of them here. And this puzzle is, to me, a green one because it gets us to the yellow gun. All of the walls are red though, so it's like the game's implying that it's a red puzzle, but we can very easily solve this with just the green gun. And this is one of the paths that gets us over to the yellow gun. I think that's the last one we've seen. And we can go back the way we came, just instead of going all the way back to Stairway to Heaven. And now we'll do the blue puzzle here. So the blue puzzle is to shove this box back, and it's going to bring the platform down, and then hold it with a block, and when we take the block away, it's going to release it and send us up there. So we can jump to get to the top. If we hadn't jumped, we'd get stuck in a loop down there and have to do the same puzzle again. So we can either jump there or use blocks to help boost ourselves up. And here we get to 2 different endpoints. If we had gone there without sneaking the extra blocks through, we'd only have 1 block here that we got from releasing that big box. That would let us see the green gun but not get to it. If we got here with the extra blocks like we did, we're able to go this other way, which actually gets us to the green gun. I believe this is now all 3 of the ways to get to the green gun that we've covered, so we're going to continue from here. We get into a room that teaches us lessons about drawing, and I haven't shown all of the ways we can fail puzzles, but I thought this one was particularly good, so we'll go through that one. If we get here without enough blocks, then we have to loop back through this side path. We only need 4 blocks to get through here, so we'll definitely have that. And it just loops us right back to the green gun room again. And the reason it does that is to teach us about this wall where we're supposed to figure out that we can take blocks slowly and not disintegrate the shape and only get a few blocks out of it. So if we go from the edges of the shape instead of breaking it up, we're able to get a bunch more blocks here. And that'll allow us to get through the door on the left up ahead, which is one of the ways out of the room. So we take these blocks, we'll use them to fill in this line and get to that cube in the middle, which gives us a whole lot more blocks. And we'll kind of take from the edges of it so that we don't disintegrate it by taking the middle out first. And once we have a bunch of blocks here, we'll be able to go over and we can fill in these tracks to get to the green lasers at the end of the tracks. And once we cover the 2 lasers, it's going to get us through this door right here. So we get back to this room. We haven't gone this way. It's a W on the map. I'm just showing here that it's another way to get back to Stairway to Heaven. So, if we go back to this room and now we go out to the right, that's going to be a yellow puzzle. So, here we learn that instead of just drawing all the way around these tracks with the yellow gun, we're able to drag a block around and do it much more quickly with only a couple of blocks instead of having to get a whole mass of them. So this yellow wall, we can't break through it because it regenerates too quickly. We're going to need to drag all the blocks out of the way, and then we'll get through. So this gets us to the last of the rooms in climbing the tower, and now we'll actually go ahead and walk through. So once you've been to all of the rooms, they connect. So we can go 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and take a tour of the whole place just by walking through. Each of these puzzles, when you initially get to them, has an exit that leads you to the next number in a logical order. So I've labeled all of those the same on the map. Those all say number 90. And we'll just do one of them for an example. So exiting from room number 1, it takes us right back to the room that we just came from. And each of the rooms of climbing the tower has the same kind of exit to it. Here we're going to look at something that's strange to me. It's not actually a puzzle per se, but it confuses me. So we can see through that window an alternate version of the room where we're looking at the red gun. But there's where the red gun actually sits, and it's gone because we already have it. So I don't know if it's just an oversight in the programming of the game that there's an extra red gun over there, but it's strange. So number 91 on the map is just like another number 90. Don't know why I gave it a different number. And we'll solve 71 again. This time we'll actually go explore this room. So this plate bounces us over, and to get through we have to look up at the window, and it's going to take us to this room. And we're going to look at some more strange stuff. So this room has a hole in the floor, and that hole takes us down to the bottom of the tower where we've seen this up sign a few times. We can use the up sign to get us back to the top, and at that point we're going to be back in a room that looks like breaking the arc, but it's actually not. Somehow it's still the top of the tower room. And that brings up a question on the map where there's two connecting paths to the right and up from the top of the tower. I don't know what those are. I can't figure out what those actually connect to. So if you see there, we're still in the top of the tower room. We never went back to breaking the arc, even though it looks like we did. So I'm not sure where the connection is there, and I don't think the map accurately represents the connections between these rooms unless I'm missing something. So now we'll go ahead and just proceed through like we're supposed to. On the map it shows connecting from the top of the tower through breaking the arc and then down to an arrow that shows AC on it on my map, but I don't think that's correct because this room isn't breaking the arc. We never actually go back to breaking the arc. We are still in the top of the climbing the tower. So that's why I drew the kind of arced arrow on the map that shows the top of the climbing the tower leading directly to AC, which is here. We've just fallen down, and if we look at that eyeball and go out through there, we are back in the Leap of Faith, the initial room that we go to first in the game. But instead we will go ahead and ride a block up here to the puzzle where we get the yellow gun, or the red gun. But let's go take a look at the map before we do that. So back on the map, the path we took, you can see we didn't actually go back through breaking the arc. We jumped over it. So that's a strange thing to me. Anyways, I guess it's just the way the map is. So we'll go ahead and solve the puzzle to get the red gun. This is clearly a yellow puzzle, and it's similar to another one we've done where we have to delete a block and leave it behind, separate from the chain. And we just have 3 lasers that aren't covered that we need to get to. And they conveniently give us exactly enough blocks to do this without having to replicate any, even though the shape in the middle looks like we can replicate blocks there. So once we get the red gun, we just do the training exercise with it. We can absorb all those blocks to expose the blue lasers. We can place all the blocks in here to cover the green lasers. And then we get out, and all we have left to do is explore the place where we saw the end sign and continue to the conclusion of the game. So here, normally we'd go get a few blocks and grow them inside that field and then shrink them to get rid of the blocks in there, but we're going to take a shortcut and put this block in the middle and connect it with the shape on the right and crash it into the wall to destroy them all. And that's going to give us a path to get through without taking the extra time to go and gather blocks from a room that we'd have to walk to. So this ending sequence forces us to use all of the training that we've learned throughout the game, which is pretty cool. So that springboard is annoying, because if you jump too high you run into the ceiling, and if you don't jump high enough you don't make it forward to the ledge. We go through the white window here, it takes us to a bunch of colored windows. The one we want is the white one. If we look through there we see the blue exit that we just saw through the window. And we get to a spot where we have to walk away backwards from the circle on the wall, and that gives us a passageway to get through. The next puzzle we have to look at the eye on the wall and bounce through. This one regenerates very quickly after disappearing, so you have to jump through as soon as you look at it or you'll run smack into it as you fly over there. Here we have the balls that move quickly when we move around and destroy all of the platforms. We have a combination of these type of platforms plus the type that appear when you walk and disappear when you jump. So here, if we stand still and jump, we won't move quick enough to destroy the things with the balls, but we will get past. And when we get to the top, we see there's a wall blocking us from getting out, so we have to go over to this secret path here. And on this, if we run, the balls will destroy the other pathways, but since we didn't jump, the floor that we're standing on is fine. So that gets us past the edge there. And now this final puzzle sequence is not too difficult, it just takes a while to get through. So to get to the black cube, we basically just need one cube there, but we have to go on a very long journey in order to find that one cube. We go through a bunch of doors, and our goal is to get to a big mass of red cubes that's up ahead. That one right there. So to get to it, we need to go up a level and through yet more doors. And then we can get all these blocks. Now we just have to retrace our steps to get back to the start here, but we don't just have green doors to walk through, we have blue doors, so we need to actually solve some puzzles. The puzzle here is there's blue lasers inside of this glass case, so we need to connect with the red blocks in there and pull them out to expose the blue lasers. So we just make a mass of blocks inside and drag it out. Same thing here, we just have to make a large enough mass that it reaches all the way over to this last block, and then we just drag them out, and it'll expose all those blue lasers. And now we have to go down on this springboard. We have to use a block to hold it down because the ceiling's too low to actually jump enough to push it down. Or we can jump rapidly and shove it down. So here we have fields that we can't get blocks through, but we can ourselves move through the field, and there's a channel here that we can drag the blocks into. So we pull some blocks in here, and there's a channel in the floor that if we fill it up, it'll get us blocks to the other side. It's the only way we're able to carry blocks over there. So now that we're on this side, we get some blocks back, and we can go solve the final set of doors, which aren't very difficult puzzles, they're just filling in a couple of spots with blocks. There's a block destruction field there, so we gotta take a few of them through this little gateway. It opens on one side to let us put blocks in, it opens on the other side to let us take them out, and then since we have the red gun, of course, we can replicate a bunch of blocks. I think it's kind of interesting they had 7 spots on that wall, so we could only take 7 blocks through here, meaning that we can only replicate them if we have the red gun, because you need 8 to replicate blocks with the green or the yellow gun. So we fill in these last few cubes and we reach the end. We find the black cube, and if we absorb it, it destroys all of the blocks in our gun, and it basically just sucks up the whole world around it and consumes everything. Now the quickest way to get through this sequence is just to drop the black cube on the ground and jump over the edge of this walkway, but we'll go the long way around just because we want to see everything that this last area has to offer. So we walk down this very, very long bridge, and then we get to a fork in the road up here somewhere. Very long bridge. Okay, so here's a fork. Whether we turn left or right, we end up going to the same tower up ahead. So it doesn't make any difference which way we took. And the key here is just to keep pushing straight ahead and not turn back, because everything is kind of copies of itself in other directions. If we fall all the way through this hole, we end up right back where we started. So we need to land on this platform in the middle and jump off to a different bridge. So we're able to take this bridge, and it's going to eventually lead us to a spot where if we continue across, we get back where we were. So we want to turn and go to the different looking pathway. This one's a series of steps that are going to lead to a gap we can fall through. And that gap lets us fall down, and we fall through space over and over, and our goal is to land on that black sphere. So we're falling through the level endlessly until we find something to land on. So the black sphere has a spot in it to place the black cube, and when we place it, a dome is going to form around us and keep us from getting out, and we watch this ending sequence with the logo, and then the black cube sucks in the whole world, and who knows what happens there. Interpret it as you will. We're going to cheat that, and when we put the black cube in its spot, we're going to run out and be outside of that dome when it forms. So there's really no point to this. The game is still going to end once that sequence is finished. We're just able to run around outside while stuff's going on inside the dome, and really we're just missing out on seeing what's in there. So whether you're inside or outside the dome, this is the end of the game. Then the credits roll and the game closes, and that will conclude our walkthrough. So thanks very much for watching it, and I hope you've enjoyed it.